All right, guys, welcome back. Last night, kind of a, it's kind of a sorrowful night, really, in one respect. I kind of enjoyed spending the last 3 weeks with you guys. So we've had a little bit of a technical hiccup. So unfortunately, Mike can't share his screen or his webcam. So we're going to do so. I'll be showing the presentation, and Mike is able to speak over it, so we will be able to hear him. So, but we'll make the best of it. It's kind of like last night's issues, but we'll drive on, and we're going to get the best presentation we possibly can. I'm very excited about it. I think, Mike, I met you when you were coaching under 18 Irish men's team below in Neptune with Shane O'Mara, I believe, at the time. That was my first time. And I think the second time was when we worked camp together and we were working ball handling station. And I wasn't very much help that day, I think, but I think that was kind of, and then we kind of just kicked on from there and just kind of kept in touch from at different times, and we came across each other at European Championships and things like that. So I guess what we talk about tonight is the player's journey. And before we get that, I guess, can you kind of fill us in on your journey in one respect before you get there, or is that going to be in the presentation?
That was pretty much the topic of the presentation. So I'm going to touch base on that as we go through it. But thanks for having me. I appreciate you allowing me to come on, and I'm looking forward to having a discussion.
Definitely. So what I'm going to do, Mike, is I'm going to share my screen, and then you just tell me when you want to move on, and we'll get cracking on this. So let's see if I can. Can you see my screen now, Mike?
I can see your screen, yes.
And is that good?
Yeah, I can see it. If you want to put it on full screen, maybe if everyone's seeing the same thing as I am, maybe you want to put it on full screen.
Yeah, so it's on full screen there now. So is that?
That's good. I mean, it's good for me. It works for me.
I'll take me off, and I will let you drive on.
Okay. You're all very welcome. My name is Michael Bree. As Paul mentioned, this is a topic on a player's journey. Paul invited me to do one of these a couple of weeks back. He approached me with his topic, and I was a little bit unsure about taking it first, but I said, why not? Maybe it'll give people a different perspective, especially youth coaches coaching in Ireland, different perspective of the type of player and the type of qualities maybe a player would need in order to kind of go through the steps of becoming a professional player. So I'll start it from that premise, and I'll move forward, and I'll go through from my high school days to my college days to my professional career, and then how those experiences have shaped my coaching career and the decisions I made in my coaching career. And then at the end, I will talk briefly about kind of what advice I would kind of give myself if I had the opportunity to go back and do it all again. So Paul, if you want to go to the next slide. A little bit of background on me. Born and raised in Sligo. My underage club was Sligo All Stars. My secondary school was Summerhill College. I attended an NCAA Division I college in Davidson College and graduated in 2002. Played professionally for 9 years in different countries from France, Spain, Poland, Germany, and Sweden. Luckily, fortunate enough to have a great international career too. I was captain Ireland at all levels. Hello. Thanks. I started my coaching professional career a little bit prematurely. I'd still be playing today if I could. Unfortunately, my knees didn't give me the opportunity, and luckily for me, I had the opportunity to coach in the NBA Development League as my first job. A year later, I moved to Sweden to take over one of the bigger clubs on the west coast of Sweden. And then 2.5 years later, I started with the Swedish Federation asked me to take over a project of building a new program, an elite level high school program on the west coast of Sweden, and I thought it was an interesting prospect, and I took it, and I've been here ever since. Throughout that journey, I was also part of a number of national teams. I had the opportunity to work with a lot of very good youth players, with the Irish under 18 team, Swedish under 18 team, and also a couple of under 16 teams. I'm also FEC certified. I was certified about 2 years ago. It's the FIBA European Coach Certificate. It's an informative program, and it gave me some things to think about, especially when it comes to youth basketball. You can go on to the next slide. Okay, let's begin. When I started thinking about what type of skill set I had as a junior player, I could talk about shooting, passing, dribbling, but they weren't the things that I think that separated me from most kids my age. If I start slowly with the background, I had a multi-sport background. I was fortunate enough to grow up in an area where we lived across from a community center, and in that community center we had access to tennis courts, basketball courts, football field, Gaelic fields were around the corner. So I had prime opportunity for exposure in sport, and opportunity to play when I wanted with many different teams. So I think that benefited me a lot growing up, mainly in terms of movement patterns and coordination. These days, when I'm dealing with kids that come into our program here, a lot of kids have specialized in basketball for most of their lives, mainly due to location of where they're living or time. They don't have the time to play multiple sports, and I think that also affects how they move, the movement patterns out on the floor, and things that they're limited with when they come here that we have to try and address and work with as we go through the 3 years here at our program. My mindset was different for sure. I was unafraid. I wasn't afraid of failure. I wasn't afraid of a challenge. I view things differently. I was speaking to my wife earlier on today. I was trying to explain, or yesterday, how I see things or how I saw things, and I never wanted to be the best player in Ireland. My goal wasn't to be the best player in Ireland. It wasn't to be the best player in my peer group. My vision, what I saw, how I saw things were based on the best in the world. I tried to chase the best. I tried to be the best. I wanted to be in a situation where I was competing with the best. So for me, that was the NBA. That was high level in Europe. So these were the people who I saw. So my mindset as a youth player was, I was using Ireland as a stepping stone. I was going somewhere further, going somewhere more, and I needed to get there. And I didn't know how I was going to get there, but I knew I had to get there. And that was my mindset when I approached sports and when I played and when I competed. I had a passion for training. I think it's very important. If you're going to be a very good youth player, you have to love to work out. You have to love to train. I used to seek out as many practices as I could in a week, whether it be on a Tuesday night, a Thursday night, a Friday morning, Saturday morning, whatever it was. I just show up. I just show up and be there. It could be different teams, different levels. It didn't matter. If I had the opportunity, I'd go. And if I couldn't get the opportunity with teams, I used to find it across the street in the court that was outdoor court right across the road from me. So I used to use that as my training ground when I couldn't get into gyms with other teams. I think that really helped my development at a young stage. It put me ahead of people. I put more hours in than other people, and it gave me a great advantage at a youth level. One of the other things I think was maybe a little bit different for me was I didn't crave appreciation for people. I wasn't into the hype. I never listened to the hype. I didn't care if people patted me on the back or said good things about me or criticized me. For me, it was more about how I saw myself. I think I was very, very self-aware of who I was and where I wanted to go. I knew when I played well. I knew when I played bad. I didn't need someone else to tell me. I had my own opinion on the matter, and that truly was the only thing that really mattered to me. I think that's different than these days, and a lot of kids that they play maybe because the parents are pushing them in. The parents want them to be successful. Maybe they get rewarded from the parents or from their teammates, or they get adulation from it. But for me, it wasn't something I needed or craved, and it's something I think is a little bit different than most people. Sacrifices, this is self-explanatory. If you want to be good at anything, if you want to excel at anything, you're going to have to put more and more time into it, and then obviously there's sacrifices to go with that. Whether it's social, whether it's TV, whether it's with friends or nightclubs or weekends, whatever. I had one singular focus, and that was to advance myself in the basketball world, and nothing was going to kind of get in the way of that, and I was willing to make those sacrifices to make it happen. I grew up in the 90s where basketball was starting to change. The NBA was really getting good. We had some great role models to look at. my favorite player was Magic Johnson. Michael Jordan was emerging. The Lakers Celtics was kind of ending their era. But the game was played in a certain way, and it was igniting, interest across the globe. And I was lucky enough to be able to watch it and grow up during that period. And as a kid, you're trying to emulate the people you see. And my favorite player was Magic Johnson. I tried to emulate his game. His game was creative. It was stylish. It was fast. It was free flowing. And I think my brother Pascal showed me the first Laker game I ever saw, and I just fell in love with the Lakers and Magic Johnson. And then obviously Michael Jordan came along, and his thirst and his passion for success and the way he competed was how he scored. It was something that we all kind of craved, to be or to copy. And so again, you get in the gym and you try to create it and mimic it, and your game evolves. The better you see, the higher level you see, the more you absorb, the more creative you can get. So I think I was lucky to be part of a generation that was exposed to high level basketball, and I learned a lot from it. I have speed is next, but speed in a different way. I was fast. I didn't have a big jump. I wasn't dunking. I wasn't driving to the rim and finishing over people, but I did have speed in the open floor. I think that the different skill that I had was speed with the ball. I think I was just as fast with the ball as I was without it. And I think it gave me a big advantage. And if anyone is working with ball handling, anyone working with players, you know that they're only as fast as quick as they can move the ball. But I could move with the ball as quick as I can move without it. So I think I had a major advantage at the youth level over players, and my ability to weave in and out of players and move up and down the floor at great speed. I think the next point, anticipation and recognition skills, this kind of goes back to the multi-sport background. I think I had playing multiple sports, playing different types of sports, playing fast sports, your body kind of adapts, your mind adapts, your hand-eye coordination adapts. I think I had very good anticipation and recognition skills. I could recognize situations very quickly in terms of off-ball defense, on-ball defense. I think it translates into steals and grabbing long rebounds. Situations where or like, how did that player get there? It's hustle situations. I think these type of skills kind of help me. Shooting, of course, I could score at a youth level. I think all players who kind of grow on to become pros have the ability to score. The game's a little bit slower, to find space, to find opportunity. Shooting was a big skill for me. I was lucky enough to have some very good fundamental coaches growing up who instilled in me the right type of fundamentals for shooting, and it kind of stuck with me all through my career, and I appreciate it. I'm very appreciative of it. Lastly, I was a history junkie. I absorbed as much information as possible. Back then, there wasn't that much information available to consume. I mean, it was newspapers, it was magazines. You go down to the store on a Friday and see if they had a new slam magazine or a new paper, and then you'd read it from wall to wall and try to absorb as much as possible, learn about the players. And a lot of times you were buying the yearly guides, the season guides, and you'd learn all the stats of the players. You'd learn all about the teams, the makeup of the teams, and you'd also learn about the history of the sport. So you become more informed about where the sport came from, and then you get inspired to kind of try and bring it forward if you can. Yeah. Next slide. This brings me to Davidson College, and prior to Davidson, I'll talk about how I was recruited. And recruitment is pretty much the same these days. It's about exposure. It's about being seen. Prior to being recruited by Davidson, I was lucky enough to be part of a very good national team. We had a very good generation, and we played in the all format of the European Championships, and I performed very well. I won a bunch of awards, and I got exposure from it, and then I got invited to the first ever Nike European camp, and this was the same camp that had Yao Ming, it had maybe Pau Gasol, Jan Carlos Navarro, it had a lot of big names, future NBA players that went to it, but it was the first time it was held in Paris. And just prior to the camp, I was told I was pre-selected for, I guess what you would call would be the USA versus World game. I was pre-selected to be part of that team. And I went to the camp and I was looking forward to it, but I didn't perform the way I wanted to perform. I didn't get the exposure maybe that I needed. I kind of bumped head with the coach that was working with me. He was a bit of an abrasive guy, and things didn't work out for me. But nevertheless, I got a lot of interest from different coaches and different colleges because of that camp. And Davidson was one of them. And what stood out to me about Davidson when I was looking at college and trying to assess which college would be best for me, there was a couple of different criteria that I want. One was the academic side. I understood I needed a good degree. I needed a school that would provide me with good academics. Davidson ticked that box. I mean, if you know anything about Davidson, which obviously Paul you do, Davidson's I guess considered a new Ivy. It's a high academic institution. It's one of the best in the South. Second thing was a winning culture. I wanted to win. I wanted to be part of a winning culture, and Bob McKillop had established himself in Davidson. The team had turned around, and they were winning gradually more and more every year. So I knew it would be a good situation for me to go there, knowing that we'd have the opportunity to win. And then lastly, it was when I met McKillop. He resonated with me. He was one of the few people who told me the truth. You know, he approached me. He didn't recruit me with hype. He recruited me with an honest perspective. He didn't tell me I was going to be the greatest player in the world. He didn't tell me things are going to be great for me as I go through my career in Davidson. He just said he'd give me an opportunity. And if you know anything about my mindset, that's all I needed to hear. I didn't want to hear. I wasn't going to listen to hype anyways. But the fact that he just said he'd give me an opportunity, and you know, I said, okay, let's go here, and I liked everything about it. So it's the reason why I chose Davidson. Turned out to be a great decision for me, and yeah, and you know, that's how I got there. The interesting thing about, and for people who are interested in going to college or thinking about going to college, the thing you have to understand about college basketball is it is a business, and there's recruiting and there's a recruitment period, and then there's the reality of the fact when you sign your contract and you join your team, it's completely different. You know, they wine and dine you essentially all the way till you sign the paper, and then when they sign the paper, you're part of the team, you're part of the project. You have to adapt to them, they don't adapt to you. So you can't be naive. I think a lot of kids go over there, they're not ready to adapt. They're a little bit naive about the situation, and they get caught off guard when it comes down to winning, and when it comes down to them being all about winning. And my advice is you must understand the culture of what you're getting into. And for me, Davidson, Bob McKillop, I mean, I haven't met a more buttoned up man in all my life. He knew exactly what he wanted, who he wanted to be, how he wanted things done. He had a reason for everything, had a plan for everything. For us, in our case, it was a systematic play. It was a 4-out, 1 in motion. We had structured running, we had disciplined lanes, and you know, coming from where I came from, we didn't have any of this. We were playing. You know, each of us had a job to do. We earned our roles. He asked me to run the team. You know, I was a scorer coming out of Europe, and he asked me to run the team, and I said, okay, why not? I'm a team player. He said he didn't need me to score. He had scorers, but he wanted me to run the team, and he felt that I could be the best point guard, you know, in Davidson history. And I think Stephen Curry has beat me to that one now. But it was just interesting to be part of the whole process. I think the biggest thing I got out of Davidson, it wasn't so much an individual development. It was a team-oriented aspect to defensive sharpness. I think understood what a quality culture is like, and been part of a quality culture. I also got an inside look into team building, how to structure a team, how to build a team, how to put pieces around each other. And I think the last one, which is probably very relevant for a lot of kids who are thinking about going to the States, is ball protection. The value of a possession and ball protection. Guys were getting quicker, guys were getting more physical. You know, the athleticism was going up a notch. I had to learn how to protect the ball better. I had to learn how to dribble, using my body more as a tool, and still get to where I want to, and still, you know, initiate an offense, still get the ball to where it needs to get to. And that took a while to get. I was a 160-pound skinny Irish guy, and I was pushed around. It was physical. It was much more physical than I expected it to be, and it took a while to adapt to it. We did adapt, and we moved forward, and it was good. I'll come back to McKillop. I'll talk a little bit more about when we talk about the philosophy, but big thing was attention to details. The man had a plan for everything and had an idea for everything. And I think that stuck with me as I went through my career. Is the biggest thing I got from my experience in Davidson over the 4 years. I think for kids who are thinking about going over there, I think that the next thing is a support system. I think to go back to not be naive, you also need a strong support system. You're by yourself, you're moving to a different country, you're going into a different environment, a different cultural environment when it comes to sport. And then if you're not ready for the aspect of sport being about winning, and truly about winning, then you're going to have a hard time fitting in, because it's a dog eat dog, it's a strongest survive mentality, and this could end up breaking a player physically or mentally in the pursuit of winning. I think it's changed a little bit more now. I've been back to Davidson a couple of times over the last couple of years. I know their culture has changed. I know their approach to player development has changed. But back when I was going through, it's a strong support system was needed. And I was lucky to have 2 sisters living in the States at the time. So I was lucky to have a strong support system around me if I needed it. But it's very, very important for young players when they're going over to a different country. Next slide. I won't stay too long in the pro career. I decided to make this more of a youth directed talk. But I will say this: college basketball was probably, for me, and still is to me, more professional than professional sports for the level that I was playing at, anyways. The difference was I was getting a paycheck, but that was it. What didn't come with the paycheck was individual development. What didn't come with the paycheck was looking after your body better, having people around, resources around to help you look after your body better. You had to do this by yourself, so that means you had to be self-taught. So there was many years of me reading books on psychology, on training, trying to improve me, make myself a better version of me, all with the intent of trying to improve my skill set from year to year. Hence, there was a lack of knowledge on my part. There was a lack of resources. My practice wasn't very deliberate. I was always working out. I was always fit, but it wasn't very directed at anything in particular. And I think this is one of the biggest flaws that players encounter when they become a pro player. And I think if you get lucky, I mean, there's a lot more individual coaches now these days. But when I was as a pro, they didn't have many individual coaches to go to and work out with and kind of work on your game. But the biggest things that I learned as a pro was more in-game tactics. There's more adjustments, more day-to-day adjustments, more game-to-game adjustments. I think as my career developed and I started seeing different reads, I mean, for me, I was mainly a pick and roll player. When I started seeing different types of reads, shooting off the dribble, shooting behind screens became more and more important. And it became vital. Combine that with a development of a floater or a runner for my position. Teams kept giving me similar looks, and I had to learn how to adjust. But the adjustment came from me. It didn't come from a coaching staff. It didn't come from a club. They were just interested in winning, and for them, they have a high turnover of players. They can get rid of a new player. They don't like you. They can get rid of you. They can move you on from year to year. So they weren't making an investment in player development. And to this day, I think in a lot of small leagues where they don't have the resources, this is continuing. The player has to find their own resources and work with themselves. So I think it's important at the youth level that you start teaching a player how to evaluate themselves, how to look at their potential, how to look at their skill set and see what's important, and start putting the building blocks in for them to kind of develop themselves as they go forward, just as a safeguard to lack of resources when they get to a higher level. Next slide. Okay, this brings me back to go kind of like full circle back to my coaching career and how my playing days affected my coaching career and my experiences with Davidson, with the youth level, and also as a pro. I started off as a senior coach. had a senior mentality. I brought that mentality to coaching youth sports. It took me a while. I had success with it. And what I mean by a senior approach is you have all the answers, you have all the solutions, you know how you want to play, you know where you want to go with the ball, you know what type of shot you want to generate, you know how you want to defend, specifically who to defend, tactically, you know what to put in to kind of to minimize opportunity for your opponents. And with this approach, you can win a lot of games at a youth level. I mean, if you're anyway disciplined and winning is your thing, you'll have success. You'll have success in a youth environment, because there's only so many good coaches and there's only so many good players. But for me, it was a trek backwards to understand youth sports and how to coach youth sports. After I left the D League, I took over head coach of Hugsbow, but I also was technical director of the youth section. So I had to work with under 19, under 16, under 18, and I had to work my way back. And I used my approach, the senior approach that I had at the youth level, and we, like I said, we had success, and I thought I was doing a good job, and I thought I was, I thought at the top of the world. Essentially, I had it all figured out, but I was wrong. When I started working with Rig, a job I'm in now, for the first couple of years, I applied the same tactics that I had, the same approach to my coaching, and again, we had success. We built some success. We were winning games, but then I started looking to try and improve what I was doing. I tried to evaluate every year what we were doing. And I started having meetings with players at the end of the year. And the unique situation about my school here is that the players are leaving. So if you talk to them in the third year and you ask them honestly what they think and what could have been better, what was good, they'll generally give you an honest response, considering that they're leaving and they're not coming back and they've nothing to lose. So the feedback I got was let us play more, let us be more free, let us make more decisions. And I spent the summer thinking about this, and then I said, okay, why not? I trusted the player. The player was one of our best players. He was an extremely hard worker. He was a good kid. He went on to play Division I basketball. But I said, okay, I'll try. I said, I'll try. It's different than what I normally do, but I'll try. And that's how my philosophy changed a little bit. And then I started thinking more about what is coaching all about. I started to second guess myself. I started to think differently about it. And then I came up with a number of different things. I talked back to my Davidson days. I talked back to listening to Bob McKillop. I looked back to situations where I was with like Mike Taylor in Germany and then Will Voigt in the D League. And I thought about how they handle situations, how to look at situations. And then I started to rewrite my own philosophy. And it came down to value system, building a culture, connection with players, pitfalls, and then serving players. And I'll touch a little bit on all these things. And it's mainly for coaches who may be uncertain about where they're at or what they should be looking at a youth level. The thing with the value system, you have to figure out what's the most important values for you. We're all kind of different. We're all a little bit unique. We may have similar values, but what's unique to us is our perspective on those values. And we need to learn how to make these values come alive in a team setting. For me, it was about, I did a lot of reading, I did a lot of writing. I just, introspection, look inside and see what's important for you. You have to figure out certain things that are very, very important to you, and you have to be adamant about them. You have to have some uncompromising principles. You need to know who you are. You need to know what you stand by and what you stand for. And anytime you deal with a situation, you're making a statement about who you are and what you are, and players will watch you, and they'll see if you really believe in something or if you're handling things randomly. What you believe has to show itself to the players. When you start making these decisions, your philosophy starts to take shape. And if you look in everyday life, everyone has a philosophy. You act the way you act. You make choices from how you run your life, how you deal with your family, how you work with your businesses. But rarely do you sit back and kind of observe or evaluate it. But the higher the level you go in basketball, the more you have to evaluate, the more you have to be buttoned up, the more you have to have solutions, and the more you need to know about yourself and how where you're coming from. this then leads to building a culture. And basically, once you figure out your values, once you figure out what you stand for, once you figure out who you are, then it's about how do you build a culture? How do the players feel this from you, this genuine feeling from you? And it generally happens, everything that happens in practice, everything the players feel when they're with you in your environment, when they talk to you in the gym, it has to be kind of like a real situation. The values that you value have to come out, have to come alive in that meeting. And when the players feel this, then you start building trust. There's respect, and the atmosphere starts to change, and you feel it. It's there, and momentum starts to build from there and going forward. The pitfalls of all this is lack of consistency. Yeah, you got to work with what you know. I think a lot of coaches make the mistake of trying to copy what you see. The problem with copying what you see or trying to mimic someone else is that you'll hit on some points and you'll miss on others. And the players will see this, and then there'll be debates that go on in their head. They'll have distractions in their head. They'll be wondering, what does he mean this, or does he mean that? And if your goal is to perform, you have to kind of get all this stuff out of their head, all these random garbage situations out of their head, and get all these distractions away from them, and allow them just to focus on developing and improving and performing. So you have to ask yourself, to figure things out, you have to ask yourself all these questions prior to dealing with the players, and you have to show that you are consistent with how you approach, how you deal, how you handle situations in your everyday work. Connection with players is also extremely important. Obviously, you're dealing with a team environment. You have to find a way to bind the whole group together. You have to find some sort of common bond between them. For us, it's like a workout culture. We want our players to be interchangeable. We try to avoid numbering players. We want players to play for each other. We want them to, we want to let them opportunity to come, let it happen naturally. Our leadership has been very unselfish, and we want players to play fast, loose, and play with a lot of energy. Lastly, I think the biggest thing, I think this is hard for people to do. I think you have to learn to serve your players, especially at a youth level. I think you can apply to senior level, but there's more dynamics there, and that you have to take into consideration. But at a youth level, I think people have to start serving the players. And to do this, you kind of need to be comfortable in your own skin. You have to kind of have gotten over yourself. At the same time, you still have to have authority over the players. So you have to show a little bit of vulnerability, but you also have to show them that you know what you're doing. And it's a powerful position. If you can do this, it's a powerful position to be in as a coach, and it'll help improve the relationship with the players. It's almost like being a very good parent. You want the best for your kid. You'll do whatever you can for your kid, but the parents know that the kids know you know what you're talking about, and will respect you and honor you, and maybe push the boundaries every now and again, but they'll always come back to you in a good way. Players have to know there's no agendas, there's no agendas out there pending. They have to know that you're working for them and you'll do anything for them in that case. This, like I told you before, I've only figured this stuff out in the past maybe 3 years. Before I was a total control freak, but I think now the way I coach is, instead of demanding control, I concede control, and I think it's been working good for the players, and the feedback I've been getting is very good from the players, and we're producing a lot of good players out of our program. Next one. Younger self advice. What would I have loved to have known as a younger player? One, knowledge of the body, injury prevention, recovery. I think there's a ton of knowledge out there about this now. I didn't have a clue about it. I mean, when I left to go to Davidson, I think Shane Amara he only helped me. He started helping me in the weight room. I started lifting weights. I wasn't really lifting weights. I started to lift weights, and I had no building blocks for looking after my body, for supporting my body. And if I'd known now what I'd known then, I would have been lifting every day. I would have been doing some sort of prehab. It wouldn't have to be heavy lifting, but I'd be doing some sort of prehab on my body, working on my body, building me up, making sure I can sustain longer workouts, and maybe I would have had 3-4 more years in my career because my body was in better shape. Explosive training, I mean, the number one attribute or trait for a player is explosive power. It's number one physical trait. And I didn't know little to no explosive training. I was fast. I had good high speed, but I think there was room for improvement if I trained the right way. I think mental training. I think players should look into sports psychology. I think it's if you're looking to get an edge, if you're looking to kind of explore a different area, I think mental training is very, very positive. I know it's very, very positive for me in the European Championships at a youth level with John O'Connor. We did a lot of mental training and allowed me to visualize and allowed me to prepare better. And I think, you know, it was a little bit taboo, I suppose, at the time. People were reluctant to do it. They thought it was maybe weakness, but I think it's a strength, and I think it's very important for players to kind of explore. And maybe it fits you, maybe it doesn't, but I think, you know, maybe it gets 1 or 2 kids thinking a little bit different and view themselves a little bit differently too would be good. Performance training. This is mainly just speaking at the right time. They're knowing how to perform, how to train prior to a game, how to prepare, you know, a season. There's a lot more information to it, and you know, looking to try and peak at the right time is important. And I think that information is out there for all types of coaches to use in your season planning. And I think you know, that from our experience, you know, we debate whether or not we want week-to-week games. We think it's very hard to peak from week to week. We found from our experience that, you know, training blocks of about 3 weeks allows us to maximize performance. So 3 weeks of training and then a cluster of games, 3 or 4 games over a weekend, like a tournament. And we seem to perform very well during these tournaments when we do this. When we go to week, we tend to be up and down with our performance level, even though we're trying to taper and we're trying to peak at the right time. But it was just interesting observations over the years from gathering information from what we're doing. Obviously, nutrition, how to eat correctly, how to fuel the body better. Use of your resources around you. I mean, one of my major regrets from my Davidson experience is not using the resources that were available. And the courts, I mean, fantastic facilities, but I kind of just did like everyone else, the one practice a day, did the lifting when we were supposed to do lifting, and then in the off season we worked out. But there was time where I could have been in the gym by myself doing extra work, which I didn't do. And from what we know now with my coaching in this high school is that the kids that excel, the kids that kind of go on to do something bigger and better, they're the ones who are putting extra time in outside of the regular practice. So they're in the morning at 7 o'clock shooting for an hour before they go to class or before our practice. Our normal practice starts. And I think I could have made better use of the resources that were available to me there. And likewise, as a professional player, I think there was only one situation where I actually used resources outside of the given times, and actually had a great year that year. So there is a correlation between, and if I'm encouraging a player who has ambitions to be better or be different, then I would encourage them to do more, to find more time to work on your skills individually better, away from the normal practice time. And then I would say a long-term perspective to a short-term career. I think nobody talks about what happens at the end of a player's career. I think a lot of athletes struggle at the end of their career because maybe it ends prematurely, or maybe they just weren't thinking about it while they were going from year to year. And I think youth coaches should paint the picture, should expose them to the actual career of a basketball player, of an athlete, and go through the different stages, make them aware of it, and fully inform them of what to expect, or what to expect. I think in smaller countries, this is even more important, because smaller countries can't pay players. They can't give them a career. They can't give them a legitimate career in terms of paying them a legitimate wage. So they have to have secondary careers, which is fair enough, and it's not a bad way of going. But I think that should be a upfront agreement and an upfront discussion that goes on between the player and the club and the situation that they're going into. Self-identity, I would also, and I encourage this to players all the time, I think there's a big problem with a player's identity and self-identity and how they see themselves. So self-confidence versus self-esteem. I think when you're an athlete, your identity becomes the player rather than the person. I think it's important for youth coaches and general any coach to kind of make the player understand that you're a basketball player when you're on the floor, but you're yourself when you're off the floor, and who you really are and who you need to be strong and confident is the person off the floor, not the one on the floor, because that's going to end at some point, and that can't be your identity. And I think it's something that people don't touch on either and don't talk to players about, and I think they have to be aware of that, and something to be cautious over. And then obviously use video more. It's a great resource. Looking at yourself on the screen is a little bit weird at start, but once you get used to it, there's a lot you can learn. There's a lot you can improve on. Everyone has the tunnel vision. You can see yourself. You have a vision of yourself, but the video doesn't lie. It shows you what you're doing. It shows you how you're acting. It shows your body language. So there's a lot you can get from it if you're willing to put the time and effort to kind of clip it. Yep, and that's pretty much it.
Excellent, Mike. I have a bunch of notes there. I haven't any questions come in yet, so I'm going to invite questions in. But in the meantime, I'm going to go down through my notes here and kind of pick out a few questions.
Okay.
And I'm probably going to start back at early on. In terms of, you spoke about. I'm going to put that back up. Sorry, a second. Yeah, I know what story is with that. So you spoke about multi-sports and the advantages of it, and you spoke about playing tennis. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah.
How do you think that sort of culture, which sports helped you most to develop certain aspects of your basketball? Like, for example, did your tennis improve your lateral movement for defense and things like that?
I imagine it did. I think it's pure reaction, right? It's quick. It's quick movements. It's lateral movements. It's retreats. It's forward. You have to move quick to respond to the ball. I think all the sports I described were fast-paced. Either it was a big ball or a small ball. Either you were trying to hit it with a racket, or you were trying to catch it with your hands, or use your head. So they all apply. I think they all helped. The biggest thing was the coordinations. I think just having coordination, having a movement pattern that worked, I think it helps. It always helps.
Very good. I suppose I'm on my journey in terms of adapting to players now at the moment, in terms of changing my style in that respect. But I guess the one thing that kind of really hit me with your talk early on was, and it kind of really irks me a small bit, especially in youth basketball, and I kind of call it the looking for the highlight moment, that we can stick on Twitter or social media, that the highlight moment, and pacing yourself to get that highlight moment. So I suppose, can you just kind of broach more on maybe the not craving appreciation?
Yeah, I think it had to do with, I guess, I don't know where I got it from. I can't explain where I got it from. I just this is how I saw things. Maybe my family, my brothers kept me humble. Maybe that was the case. I'm one of seven. I have four older brothers. Maybe, in terms of winning and losing, maybe I became numb to losing because, I didn't win so much at a very young age. So maybe that wasn't something I needed. So then it kind of forced me to find another way to kind of to work, to approach the sport. But it's still something I never needed. I never needed anyone. I mean, it was always people saying you were good, always people patting on your back. But for me, it was, I don't know you. I don't know who you are. I don't know why you're saying this about me. It was more about how I thought and how I felt, and I think it was healthy. I think it still is healthy, and I'm glad I had it in a way.
Yeah. And I think, as well, as I suppose, it's probably one advice you from listening to the entire talk is probably the one thing that probably really stuck out with me, is that your just willingness to love practice, not having a fear of failure. And I suppose that boils down to the fact of not having that craving for that highlight moment, really, is it?
Yeah, I think you could put it like that. Yeah, I think it's a good way of stating it. I played. I think I played for me. I played because I loved the game. I played because I wanted to do. I wanted to have success for myself. I wasn't playing because I wanted appreciation from my mother or my father or my brothers. I played because I loved it, and I wanted more of it, and I got something out of it. I felt good out of it, but I didn't need it from anybody else, and I think that was a little bit unique. I think it's different, and I tried to explain that to the players that I have who come in there, and it's not an easy explanation for them. It's a lot of them that they're coming from a culture of highlights, of Instagram, of Facebook, and I'm not big on any of them, to be honest with you, but it's there and it's relevant and it's changing. The players changing, and trying to get them to understand that, if we touch base on the whole game, the IQ, the creativity, if players aren't watching full games, they're watching 10-minute packages or 5-minute packages of highlights. So they're watching a finishing action, and they have no idea how that action developed. It developed 3 or 4, passes or screens before, and they don't watch that and they don't value that. They value the finish, but getting to the finish took some other sequences to happen. And I think they're looking for quick fixes. They're looking for instant gratification instead of, going through the whole process of the action.
Yeah, process is huge there, I guess. You spoke about ball protection as a point guard, and I remember when we did stations at camp, I remember you demonstrating, and I remember the contact as the two of us were demonstrating. I remember the contact that you had. I'll never forget I would consider myself fairly strong in build in one respect, but I'll never forget the hit from you that you gave, and albeit a demonstration. And the teaching points you gave that day, I still utilize today with my guys because it resonated so much. Can you explain how you developed that ability to protect the basketball?
I had to adapt, plain and simple. If I touched it a little bit on my body type, I was a scrawny little 6-foot kid from Ireland going into an athletic, physical environment where guys who were 4 years older than me. I mean, when I got into the practice environment, I was a little bit resentful for this and resentful towards McKillop, and I knew I could play. Like when I went over and watched Davidson play, and I watched them in the summer, and I was there for a recruiting trip, I knew I could play. I played pickup with the team, and I stole the ball from the starting point guard multiple times, like just playing my game. So I knew I could adapt. When I got into the environment, it was different. And then you had to adapt to the system that McKillop had in place. So you had to play by his rules. Fair enough, you buy into it, you go for it. But his rules required me to go certain places on the floor. I couldn't just freelance. I couldn't just adapt. So I had to get certain spots on the floor. Now, the defender knows where I'm trying to go too. That's the difference. When he knows the system as well, and he's maybe 20, 30 pounds heavier than me, he has a major physical advantage in that action. So I had to learn how to keep him off, get to the spot, fight for the spot. That means I had to learn how to be more physical than him. So I had to learn to hit first rather than be hit. So the minute he got his hands on me or got his weight on me, I was in major trouble. So I had to learn to try and keep him off as much as possible. At the same time, have the job of getting to the spot I need to get to for the offense to work. And that took some time. That took a lot of turnovers, a lot of frustration, a lot of angry moments, venting. But I got it eventually, and it stood with me through my whole career. It allowed me to play against all different levels, all different types of athletes, because I learned how to control my own space. I learned how to set things up better. I learned how to disguise where I wanted to go, and then I learned how to protect the ball in my own space using my own physical abilities.
Yeah, that's
it's not easy. It's not easy to teach. It's we have. I was teaching 2 girls.
Yeah. I guess that leads me to my next one in terms of, you spoke about speed with the ball, and then I wrote next to it, probably with the speed of the ball that you were good at, probably became the speed of mind and seeing, which then leads to, game-to-game adjustments as you became more aware of the next level of basketball you went to, and then obviously you spoke about teaching players how to see and evaluate. Is that something that you've carried through you as a player into your coaching, or is that something that was taught you that you felt was necessary to help your players now?
No, it's something I carried with me. I mean, if you're talking about seeing on the floor is everything in terms of an offensive end, but it helps you on the defensive end in terms of anticipation and reaction. The game slows down depending on how, if you train at a high speed, a high tempo, and you're good at it, the game slows down for you. The actions slow down. You recognize more and more actions as they're developing or as they're starting to develop, and then it gives you, a little bit of an advantage in terms of that moment. But the speed of the dribble, for me, having that advantage at a young level gave me so much confidence to explore other aspects of my game, changing direction with the ball, moving the ball different spaces, putting people on the back foot, attacking multiple bodies in the open floor. It gave me so much confidence to kind of explore. I mean, I see so many kids stop in the open floor when someone steps in front of them, and they don't realize what type of advantage they have. But if you're backpedaling and I'm moving forward, you have no advantage when there's space left or right of you and behind you. And a lot of kids don't understand that. They don't think about that. And it frustrates me when I see it, because I love it when I see it, because it breeds creativity. Because when the kid gets into space, then they can make better decisions. They can see more, they can react more, and allows the game to be more of an expressive game, which I enjoy watching.
Very good. I'm going to touch on something there, something that I heard in a previous clinic, and touch it with player-coach relationships that you mentioned. Yeah. I listened to a phrase before, I think it might have been Van Gundy mentioned it, having the balance as a player, having the balance between being stubborn and coachability. And a couple of your stories have kind of touched on that. And then obviously having that player-coach relationship. How many times have you come across that, and how important is it with those two aspects? I don't know if I'm asking the question right, but I think I might be.
Yeah, player-coach dynamics and finding a balance between allowing a player
stubbornness and being coached.
And being coached. That's a good question, and it's not an easy one, because you deal with, everyone's kind of unique in their own way. They have their own background, especially for us, we're not creating the player from the ground up. We're receiving the player at turn 15, so they have certain traits that developed and evolved in their club, and they were allowed to do certain things in their club. And our evaluation process tries to, we try to pinpoint the players that we feel best fit long-term projection for players. And then when we get them in here, we obviously start the relationship, or try to establish the relationship with them, get to know them a little bit better. But I generally adapt more to them than they adapt to me. Plain simple. It used to be the other way around. I used to make players adapt to me. I used to, in a sense, force them to adapt if they want to be part of a system. And nowadays, I try to find an angle that approaches them better and get them to get on board more. And that means I have a lot of different conversations with a lot of different players, and some guys are more stubborn than others. But one of the things I try to preach is, we want you to be you. We want you to feel that you can be the best version of you, that you can fail, that you have the freedom to fail, that you don't feel judged, and that you feel you're getting an opportunity to be the best version of you. And so that means your personality comes along with that. So we try to figure out ways to work with you, and but we also demand that you work with other people, so you accept everyone else for who they are as well. So if we're going to allow you to be you, you must allow other people to be themselves. And that type of philosophy, that type of approach has really helped us, help the group and the chemistry in the group, and it's been really, really good for us over the last couple of years.
That's sound advice there. I mean, if obviously letting the player realize they're going to let them be themselves, they must also let somebody else. That's great advice, and I suppose that falls into one of the questions here: how might Bree cedes some of the responsibilities to his players? I guess that answers that right there.
Yeah.
20 hours.
So I'm going to leave Martin's question to last there. Great talk, Mike. Some brilliant advice there for young rising stars of Irish basketball. Would you mind giving some more details regarding the difference you found when you changed to more of a player-servant type? You probably touched on it, but maybe not as much as the question would like in the last one, maybe.
Yeah, it kind of what we said before. It was more about essentially, I talked about you got to get over yourself. You got to realize where you're at, who you're working for. I think one of the powerful things John O'Connor said to me when he was coaching me with the under 18 team, he empowered me to shoot the ball. He empowered me to be me. He told me he wanted to be the best version of me, and he gave me a license to kind of explore my game with the European Championships, and I exploded at European Championships. But I remember the talk he had with me prior to the games. He said, "Stop worrying about everything. Just be yourself. Take your shots. Shoot the ball, and go ahead and be you." And that resonated with me. I kept it for years. And obviously, then I had different experiences with different teams and professionals at Davidson, and that was kind of pushed to the wayside. And then I started coaching, and I took my senior level coaching approach, which was control, 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 control. And then as I changed through my experiences with coaching youth players and listening to players more, I started to realize that this isn't about me. This isn't about Michael Bree. It's not my name on the program. You don't win games for Michael Bree. You're not winning for me. You're winning for yourself. You're playing for yourself. You're developing yourself. And part of what we preach here is that I'm not developing you. You're developing you. You're just using the resources that we provide. And it's up to you to kind of maximize those resources. So I'm giving you a service. I'm providing you with opportunity. I'm here 24/7. I'm not going to say no to a workout. If you want to work out, I'll be there. If you don't want to work out, I'm not going to judge you. But I'll try and teach you about choices and the things that affect those choices and the effect they have long term. Trying to give you a long term perspective of, if you work out more, generally you're gonna improve quicker. You're gonna put in over a couple of months. You're gonna put in 20, 30 more hours than someone else on the same thing. You're going to see a gradual improvement, and all of a sudden you're going to see a big jump, and that jump is going to push you over the top in terms of your competition or your peer group. That will kind of open up your prospects of moving forward to a higher and better level. But coming back to the serving thing, it's you have to be a little bit vulnerable. You have to be open to letting people in, letting players in, letting them see you make mistakes, owning your mistakes. Not being perfect. You can laugh, you can joke, you can be as a normal person around these kids, and they can establish a strong relationship with you because you are very, very normal. You are a normal individual. You got to be humble, essentially. You got to show that you're humble. You got to be humble around them. You got to see that they can trust you, they can rely on you, and that I think the biggest thing is agendas. I think a lot of clubs deal with agendas. A lot of club coaches deal with it. There's more agendas going on in the background, and the players, not silly, to see it. They feel it. They know it's there. And it's an unfortunate aspect of Swedish basketball and club basketball in Sweden. There's a lot of agendas going on too, and the club dynamic is difficult too, because people are fighting for the same space, same player, same opportunity. But the focus is wrong. The focus is it's based on winning, and on the youth level, it shouldn't be about winning. It should be about performing. It should be teaching a kid how to win rather than winning is the only thing that matters. It can't be all or nothing. There has to be an in between. And I think the kids who understand this, kids who learn how to win, and what I mean by how to win is that they learn to give all out effort. They learn to give the best version of themselves every day, every opportunity, every game. If they do this, they're in control of what they can control. They're playing a team game. They're playing a cooperation game. They're playing with 5 other people. They can't control those 4 other people, but they can't control how they approach, how they see the game, how they interact with the game, and that's learning how to win. And if they can bring that, and then they can join the team with 4 other guys who are doing the same thing, you're going to have success. You're going to win games. You're going to win games because you have the right mentality, you have the right approach to the sport. I think it's part of serving the players, trying to teaching them that this is the most important thing, that if you want to be good in the sport, you have to learn how to win, not just about having tactics to win games.
You actually just answered one of my questions on explaining how one would win. You just touched on it right there, and so it was great. Let me just look here. I'm going to go with Jer, and then I'm going to ask one more question, if you don't mind, then Mike, and then I might just reminisce on 1 or 2 things, if that's okay. So Jer, while building your program in high school, or even with your job as technical director, did Mike take his own advice and teach the last slide to his players?
Teach the last lie.
Younger self advice.
Oh, okay. The last slide to the players. Okay. Yeah, I
It's
mean,
actually on the screen there now, actually.
what?
It's actually on the screen.
Yeah, it's on the screen. The last slide. Yes, we do this. I mean, we have a program called XPS, and on XPS we have our players fill in daily a questionnaire. Essentially, it's a questionnaire that covers about 6 different topics, from how do you feel, how sore do you feel, how much rest do you have, how mental fatigue do you have, and you kind of rate yourself on a daily basis. And then over time you get a number relative to you, and we watch these numbers daily and we see if they're dipping or going up or down. And then we start a conversation about, hey, maybe you should rest today, maybe you're doing too much, maybe you're playing great, you're practicing great, keep it up. There's a lot of things you can interpret from the data once you have a number of data points. So through this, we build trust with our players, because we're the ones who start to initiate the conversation with them about their bodies on a daily basis. So they get to trust that we are looking after them long term, with a long term perspective. And then what we find now is we don't even have to check the numbers. The players just come to us now and say, hey, Mike, I'm not feeling too good today. I need to rest. My body's feeling tired. Or, can I get an extra practice in? I'm feeling really good. And can I get more lifting? I feel like my body needs more lifting. And so we try to inform them of the benefit of looking after your body, knowledge of your body. Explosive training, we have 2 full-time trainers here who are working daily with it or monthly with it. Mental training, we don't have a mental coach. We are trying to explore avenues to get a mental coach in, or get someone who we can just get in to do a session with them. Nutrition, performance training, because we're a high school and we're a special sports program, to have theory. Nutrition is part of it. Performance training is part of it, so they get that information as well. The self-identity is a talk I have all the time with players, and then I do fill them in on agents. I talk to them a lot about the career of basketball player, and what to expect, what to listen to, what's around the corner, how people talk to you, what to listen to, what to not listen to, and then how to make better choices for yourself. And so I've been using all of this as much as I can in an attempt to kind of educate them a little bit better so they can make better choices for themselves.
That's fantastic. That's absolutely fantastic. Just going to go back a small bit there on Martin's question. Having gone through and going back to probably your younger self advice, what are the most important things that we should be teaching 12 to 14-year-olds, or maybe slightly younger?
12 to 14-year-olds. Okay. I think it's a practice. The practice process. Love to practice. I think love to get into the gym. I think at some point along the way we lose the connection with practice, and the focus becomes to winning games. It comes over to playing games and winning games. But you don't start off playing looking to play a game. You pick up a ball because you want to dribble, or you want to shoot it, or you want to play with someone else. It's not organized. It's disorganized. It's just in the gym. A Saturday morning, it's drills. It's 30 kids running up and down the floor dribbling the ball. It's that whole process is somehow lost as you get a little bit older and older, and the focus becomes to winning the game on Saturday, having success, having your club success, feeling good about yourself because you're winning. And I think if you can get to a kid at 12 to 14 and you can instill in them the principle of a work ethic and an approach to development and understanding the long-term perspective of it, I think that kid will keep it all through his career, and he'll understand what's important, especially at the youth level, and then he'll be well prepared, or she'll be well prepared for being a professional when it all does come down to winning. And I think it's the practice process. Love the practice. Don't go away from it. Instill it in the kids and go from there.
You know what? It's very, very interesting that you say that, Mike, because I've been very fortunate. I suppose having the year out, I've been able to reflect on how fortunate I've had, how much I've been around some solid players that have gone away. And now that you say that, the one thing that strikes me with every single player that has gone away is that they have loved to practice. They love getting in the gym. They love getting better. They love being pushed. And it's if you ask me what's the one common trait with all of those players that have gone away, it's probably their love of practicing. It's probably their love of making sure their body is well prepared, and their love of practice. And even some of the guys that come back now, the first thing they do is they send a message. All right, when are we getting in the gym? And I'm like, are you home? And they're like, yeah, I'm home since this morning. Let's get in the gym. I'm like, you want to rest? And it's great when they have that sort of love of practice. So thanks for that. That all that advice. And I suppose just kind of let's finish up on a little bit of fun. And I suppose being around one part of your environment that you grew up in, how good was it when that Neil Diamond song came on at the end of a successful night at Davidson? What kind of feelings did it bring?
It's a relief, to be honest with you. You put so much time and effort in preparation and practicing, and you work so hard to prepare. You know, we had a saying, you know, easy in battle, hard in training. That was it. So our trainings were much harder than the games. They always were. The preparation was much harder. The intensity was much higher, and to listen to the song at the end, you know, it was good. It was just a relief. You're like, whew, job done. It was
yeah.
We were thankful that we got to the end, and we were happy for it. And you could relax a little bit, and then you can, you know, start the process again.
Yeah. I suppose the first time I ever saw you play, Mike, and it's probably going to bring a good memory and probably a not so good memory. And I guess I had brought in the 17 team to Dublin to play a couple of games, and we went over to the arena with the night that you played Denmark, and you won by 14. Yeah, and it was an amazing atmosphere. I think Jerry Fitz was the coach this time, if I'm not mistaken. I think you might have played maybe 37, 38 minutes that night. I remember coming into the last 2 minutes, and I think you were 21, maybe 22 up.
Yeah.
And I felt he needed to get to 16. And it was I said it afterwards, I think he left 14 up going over to Denmark. And we won't talk about the overtime movie. So but I guess how did you feel, I suppose, being so far up yet and still winning the game before you head out to Denmark, but knowing that you probably hadn't got that much of a lead in the end? How did you manage?
I don't think we saw it like that as the group. I think people talked about it, but for us, we knew we could win the game. The question is how hard or how close it would get. The biggest loss was Pat Burke. That was the biggest, going back to the States. I think if we had Pat, I think we would have won the game. What we weren't ready for was the first 3 minutes where the game was leveled within 3 minutes. It was one of the most controversial games I've ever been part of. I think it was unfairly judged. I don't know, Martin's probably, Michael blaming referees. No, I'm not blaming. It was suspicious, put it like that. I was very disappointed with the way things were. Even with that, we had our chance in overtime. The game was close. We didn't make our plays. A lot of guys fouled out, and the game didn't go the way obviously we wanted. But I think the biggest part of that was losing Pat Burke. I think we thought we could get the results when we get over there, but
I guess like in our small country's history, we've had 2 opportunities of going A with the women's under Mark Scanlon and Mark Ingle, and then obviously with you guys, that night was probably, we were 2 points away from, was it 2 or 3? We were 2 points away from going A ourselves, you know what I mean? And it was, and even that game was on TV. I think even RT went out to Denmark to show that game, if I'm not mistaken.
It was a big event. It was a good event. Yeah,
a big event. So, Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure. As I said, we've only kind of like passed in the wind every time we've seen each other. Really, we've never really had a chance to kind of sit down and have a chat. And I guess this has really kind of brought to light a lot of things I've seen as we passed. And it's been very, very enjoyable chatting with you and getting to know. And I've taken loads of notes again. But the one thing I will say to people out there is, you mentioned about enjoying the game, and I don't think I've ever seen you not smile, whether it's been a camp or on the sideline with Sweden. I think I've always seen, you're probably the one guy I've always seen that's always smiled and enjoyed the sideline, and I guess that's something that we can all take from you, in as well as to enjoy the process and enjoy the sideline just as much as being around our players and being vulnerable. So and I could testify to that a little bit myself. So it's been absolutely amazing. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. And I hope that we'll get to see you on Irish soil and maybe get to do a few clinics sometime as well. So thank you so much for joining us, Mike. Best of luck with everything, and stay safe over.
Likewise, all the best. Thanks for everything.
Thank you. Guys, thanks a million for having us for the last 2 weeks in your living rooms. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I see a lot of familiar names down the side every evening, and it's been an absolute dream to have been learning with you. And I'm doing this 21 years now, and I've learned so much in the last couple of weeks, even from our younger coaches, and envious and enthusiastic all at once. So I can only thank all the speakers. I can only thank you all for tuning in, and I can only thank the basketball community for, making this a success. We've had over 65 attendees every single night, and some nights we've had up close to 100. So only for you guys, we wouldn't have been able to continue this. And I want to thank Basketball Ireland for helping us host this, or for advertising it and helping us and stuff like that. So we will have some future stuff. What we'll do, I don't know, but we are going to have that coach mentorship program. I'm just trying to finalize a few things to make sure that it's going to run smoothly. We will be doing coach corners, referee corners, things like that. We're going to continue to try and help as much as we possibly can throughout this unique situation. But all I can say is just keep praying for our frontline workers, that they'll bring it home for us, and that we'll all make sure we do our thing, and hope to see you on the floor soon. And feel free to reach out. I love talking basketball, as you can see. So please stay in touch, and hopefully we'll be back on the floor soon. Thank you all very much, and appreciate everything that you've done. Thank you.